Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another Broke Millennial, That's Me reacting CNBC's Millennial Money episodes. We haven't done one of these in a while, so I'm excited. There are a lot of episodes to get caught up on, but today we're looking at living on 60 grand a year in Boston. I spent some time in Boston last year. Pretty cool city, a little cold, colder than what I'm used to, but let's get into it and see how this episode shakes up. As always, get subscribed and like the video. Let's get into it.
Growing up, I thought that everyone had a deaf parent. I was like, oh, hearing loss is like so popular, everyone has it, cool. And then when I entered like kindergarten, first grade, and I started meeting everyone else's parents and like understanding that no, not everyone else has a deaf parent. My name is John Urquhart and I am 27 years old from Boston, Massachusetts. I make $60,000 a year and you are watching Millennial Money. I work as a full-time sign language interpreter, and on the side I teach American Sign Language, and I'm also a TikTok creator.
That TikTok money, let's go. That's actually a pretty decent salary, and also we all like it, his side hustles, Patreon and TikTok, bringing in that, hit me with it, passive income, side hustle money. So what we're all here for. But 4 grand plus 1 grand, that's like 5 grand a month.
Growing up with a dad who's deaf and blind is a different experience than the typical, oh, my parents are typical and hearing and can talk on the phone and stuff. Cool. I would be afraid to invite people over. I mean, we're all embarrassed of our parents when we're younger and stuff like that, but my embarrassment stemmed from this like feeling of protectiveness. My family definitely did not have all the money in the world. My mom worked as a crossing guard, my dad was a retired engineer. We lived on food stamps. We'd get about like $350 a month for me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. So that's $350 for food for 4 people. And that was a real struggle, so I learned how to really budget and get the necessities. I wasn't like the other kids. I didn't have an allowance. My parents didn't give me money to go school shopping. I bought all of my clothes to go back to school. I bought all of my supplies. When I entered 7th grade in 2007, I was able to get my first cell phone and I paid for it myself. The phone itself was a Christmas present. My mom got me it on the condition that I paid for it myself. And it was great because I was prepaid, pocketed away my money, I used it to pay for phone cards. I had to really learn how to save my money to make sure that I could support myself and also try and be a kid while doing it.
You can definitely see a big difference between people who grow up not a lot of money being forced to save versus maybe someone who had a different experience. A lot of these things are habits, right? This is what you're used to. Maybe every month you're used to just spending it all, or every month you're used to saving it all. Wherever you might lie on that spectrum, it definitely carries into adulthood. And I'm not saying that you can't change your habits, but it's hard. It can be hard just depending on your situation. So it's really cool to see the stories about the people who, maybe grew up with not a lot of money, had to save, and how that experience has affected them now as adults living on their own, earning their own salaries.
So as humans, our brains process things differently. So when you are simcomming, you're processing your first language first. I downloaded TikTok in January and I was a little bit hesitant because I thought it was going to be like just a kids app. I was like, I'm not a dancer. I don't care about like doing music and stuff like that. And I saw other people doing more things than just dancing. And I was like, oh, wait, I could probably do something with sign language. I posted one video just to test the waters. and it got like 12,000 views and like 3,000 likes within like 3 hours. And I was like, wait a minute, people actually like this? And it's better than not signing at all.
For as much hate as social media, that influencer lifestyle gets, it is actually pretty cool to see that anyone can just pick up a phone with the internet, start creating content, and if it's good enough, they can build up a following, make it, maybe a livelihood or just some extra passive income, some extra money on the side. Whereas this would have never existed back in the past, maybe 15, 20 years ago. So it's really cool how we just have access now to so many things, and it's really just up to you to decide what you're good at. Maybe you can try TikTok, maybe if that's not for you. If you like video games, stream. Once again, even if it's not your main source of income, and even if you don't make money out of it, it's something cool and it's something that you can do and have a potential to just make something out of it. Like, who wouldn't love to make some money off of just doing a hobby, doing something that you love to do anyways?
But that sounds hard. It is. And simcomming is hard because
I expose my followers to American Sign Language, deaf culture, my background growing up with deaf parents, really just things that the typical person wouldn't know about unless they watch my videos. So I'm able to not only help the Hearing Society that have exposure to American Sign Language, but I'm also able to advocate for the deaf community and express their perspective. Can you give me the water?
Let's get into the finances now.
Thanks.
$2,000 a month for rent, not too bad for two people.
We've been together for 4 years now, and we've been engaged for 1. We were planning a wedding, but the whole pandemic thing kind of threw a wrench in that, so that's on hold for now. The best thing about dating anybody is that everything is 50% off. You go halvesies on everything. The electricity bill, the cable, furniture, everything is 50%.
That's facts right there. Man, spitting truth. I'm surprised no one's mentioned this before, but I've mentioned it in some other videos. If you get an apartment, one person, 100%. Two people, 50% each. I know the math is hard. I know some people aren't the best at math, but hey, even if you can't find maybe a significant other, you got friends. It's the whole college mentality. I might make a video coming up talking about how to save money in college or at school. But the best way to save money is to just share it with people, right? If I have 4 people sharing utilities, sharing the internet, sharing rent, it's going to be a lot cheaper than just 2. And for those people who kind of don't want to choose between saving money and having a nice place, then just pack more people into it as long as your lease allows for it, right? Maybe a 2-bedroom, you put 4 people in there. I've seen people with 5, 6. You got people in the living room. They got dividers in there. Really stretch the dollar and still live in a nice place. It is true. The more people you have that can split things that can be split, maybe you're not going to be sharing groceries with your friends, but the internet, right? As long as you don't have like 1,000 people on one connection, you have 4 people paying $100 a month or 1 person paying $100 a month, the internet's still the internet. So great pro tip right there. It's just a giant discount. And especially now during the pandemic, you're living with people, you have company. It's a win-win all around.
It's lovely.
cream cheese.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Cream cheese, and then we can stop in and get some bagels.
Yeah.
$130 on food, that's nothing. I applaud you. That's absolutely nothing. Once I saw that video about that, after I saw that video about the couple in Chicago, I'm just, every time they talk about food, I'm never going to not think about that. They spent like $1,000 a month on food. $130, that's actually pretty cheap. I'll go to the grocery store, and if I'm not careful, it'll be like $60, $70 per trip.
I've been a vegetarian for like 15 years now, so I'm not buying meat, but I buy like boxed pasta and like fresh vegetables and frozen vegetables, really. Like the maximum that I spend on anything at the grocery store would be like $3. If it's above $3, I don't buy it.
The classic skip Starbucks, make it at home. But I mean, it's a meme, but there's a small grain of truth to it. Ignoring the whole, okay, maybe people are underpaid, all that big societal issues. Individually, yes, 20 to 30 bucks a week is pretty crazy. And if you really need that fix, there are other ways.
I organize my expenses about every 2 weeks. So when I get my full-time paycheck, I take like the large majority of that and I transfer that into my savings. I get this like euphoric sensation when I'm able to transfer like a giant chunk into my savings.
All right, we got the budget breakdown here right off the bat. Gotta love that giant chunk of savings, $2,000 a month, just in the bank, in the savings. Love to see it. Housing, business expenses. I thought he had a job. I guess he also does Patreon and TikTok, but he's only bringing in a couple hundred a month. So I don't know where that's coming from exactly. Employee wages. Maybe he runs like another side business. Insurance pretty standard. Transportation standard. Food on the low. Phone. This is the third time I've noticed, but $92. Maybe his phone is still leased or something, but it seems pretty high when you can get like a one-line plan for like $35 to $40. Everything else standard, nothing to see here. This is hats off to you. This is solid plan, solid setup. And, you know, outside of that business expense parts, I mean, I don't know what that is. Maybe you can cut down on it, but I'm assuming if it's your business, you probably can't just get rid of payroll. Housing, if you really wanted to squeeze it down, you probably could find somewhere for cheaper. But if you're comfortable, you're okay with the amount you're saving, your amount you're taking in, shouldn't be too big of an issue.
So I like to see my savings account significantly higher than my checking. Plus, if I have all that money in my checking account, I'm like, I'm gonna spend it. Like, this is my money.
Got money in the bank too. But one point about that, I know there's like a difference between savings and checkings. Technically, savings accounts, right, where you save your money. Checkings accounts, more free-flowing spending. But for me, I've always kind of used them interchangeably. And now with the T-Mobile checkings account giving you 4% with some conditions on the first couple $1,000s a month, 4% interest, that's a checkings account too. So, you know, there are differences, but I don't know. For me, I don't know if it's been the same for you guys. Let me know down in the comments, but I've always just treated them kind of interchangeably and just used whatever account I had money to pay off bills and to use things like that. So there might be some differences, but let me know.
I definitely do think that growing up with a deafblind dad influenced my career choice. I grew up signing. I didn't use like formal sign language. I was so fortunate that when I entered high school, I took American Sign Language. And I graduated with $25,000 in debt. And I'm so fortunate that that's all I graduated with.
Yeah, that's not too bad at all. And it's kind of cool to see that he actually chose something that obviously was influenced by his upbringing.
And I am currently just saving money, and hopefully by the end of quarantine and all that, I'll be able to pay off my student loans. Let me tell you, as a college student who's making like maybe like a $200 every 2 weeks paycheck, and I get like this line of credit for $2,000, like I fell into the trap. I was like, I don't have to worry about gas, I can go with my friends, like all that good stuff you can do with a credit card.
Earlier I talked about how people's upbringings and their childhoods and their money saving habits, maybe from their parents or from growing up, kind of translate. He talked about saving money, not having much money. So I thought I thought that would mean that when he got his card, he'd be more conscious about saving it. But once again, it might just be how I always looked at credit cards. Maybe this is just me. Same thing with the bank accounts. I always just didn't really see too much a difference. I know there are some differences, but same with credit cards. I never saw it as something that you can just, use and not have to worry about it. It's just, maybe it's just me. It's just weird. I think, especially with people watching a lot of finance YouTube, right, or finance Twitter, whatever, probably have a different outlook on it. When you look at a credit card, you don't see it as like, yeah, this means I can buy a new TV. You see it as this is just another way, another thing I use to pay for things, right? I have cash, I can use a debit card, I can use a money order, I can use Bitcoin, I can use a credit card. It's just a way for you to pay for things. I think that's a great way to characterize it. A credit card is just a way for you to pay for things. It doesn't mean, don't forget it's called a credit card. Just treat this as cash, treat this as straight coming out of your bank account. If you can't afford it, don't buy it.
I was good for a while. And then I started going on vacations and stuff like that. I was good. I wouldn't pay the airfare with the credit card, but I would put everything that I was doing on vacation on the credit card. Like we all do, we're like, we'll just pay it when we get home, whatever. Well, I never paid it, and I got my credit card up to $5,000 in debt, and I was like, ooh, how am I gonna pay this? I saw my credit card statement, and then I looked at my bank account, and I was like, I have enough money in my savings to pay off this credit card. So I literally just did this spur of the moment, like Dave Ramsey, take this $5,000 from my bank and just sock it to my credit card. It was a hit. It was, but I didn't crumble from it. And now I am making sure to pay my credit cards on time. I have no.
It's actually, at least he was able to pay it off. At least he could pay it off in full, because those fees and those interest rates are no joke. We thought 4% for a bank account was high. Talk about 25. Let's talk about 27% that they might charge you or more on some of these credit cards, especially if you don't have good credit. So good on him for taking the initiative to just pay it off. It's kind of like at that point paying yourself, because it's extra money that you're not going to be able to use paying off interest. So if you already have debt, at that point just think of it as paying yourself, right? You got to pay this. If you don't pay, you're never going to be able to use that money, and you're just going to snowball into more and more debt.
During the pandemic, I started my sign language teaching service. I was like, I'm working from home, but now I have also all this extra time on my hands because I'm working from home. So how can I make money off of this opportunity? I was already getting pretty big on TikTok, so I used my following to take people's interest in sign language and fuel that fire and give them an opportunity to learn sign language at an affordable rate.
Okay, so that's where the 800 is coming from, his Patreon, what I suspected, but just more clarification on it. So he's making about $300 extra from Patreon. Not too much, but I think with his following, this might be something that he can scale up. Like, he can continue to just have $800 to $1,000 in expenses, but the money he's bringing in could go up to $2,000, $5,000 off of that similar investment. But one thing I do also want to touch upon is with these side hustles and with these businesses, also keep track of how much time you're actually putting into it. Recently, I was selling some things online, flipping some items, and I realized I was spending 3-4 hours a day doing this. And at the end of the day, if I was only making, $20, $30, $40 off of each item, you got to make sure you're at least getting paid, making value out of your time, because going out there, starting side hustles, starting a business is great, but also don't forget to keep track of your time. Just a rough estimate to make sure you're actually coming out ahead of the ball.
I hired 3 deaf teachers to teach sign language because me as a hearing person, I don't want to be the resource for sign language. I'd rather have people teach with their native language. I did want to become a licensed real estate agent just so I could also get into real estate investing. My ultimate goal down the line is to start investing in housing and real estate and be able to build some passive income for myself.
Man, he's like the internet all just in one. The last thing you gotta throw in is like some stocks, some Bitcoin, and you got the social media, you got the influencer lifestyle, you got the Patreon, you got the side hustles, you got the real estate, you got the passive income, the trifecta, you got the credit cards as well. It's great that he's taking initiative, going out there, getting his license. But also one thing, you don't necessarily need a license to invest as well.
If I wasn't doing interpreting or anything with American Sign Language, I would feel a little part of me was missing. Because that is a part of my background, who I am, how I grew up. I always want to do something with sign language in my life, even if it's not my full-time job anymore, even if I started studying real estate. Right now, my focus is to keep my full-time job, have multiple streams of income. I want to be able to not only make money, but also pocket away money for the future, because I want to be able to provide for my family more than I was able to be provided with when I was younger.